Hello and welcome to another episode of the Kam Johal Show, where we bring you inspiring guests with incredible stories that they share with us of their lives and trials and tribulations. And today my guest is no exception to that. So welcome to the show, Peter Bell.
How are you, Cam?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Me on. Very well, thank you.
You're welcome. So welcome to West Bromwich.
Indeed.
How was the drive down?
It was nice, yeah.
Was it okay?
Very leisurely.
Good. So, Pete, incredible story. You know, real kind of rags to riches to rags.
Yeah, rags to riches, back into rags, back to riches again.
Yeah, been through it all, right?
Yeah.
So, for full disclosure, I've known Pete for about 3 years now.
Yeah, 3 years.
Good friends, business partners.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, excellent. So, where did it all begin? Because the interesting thing is that, you know, your parentage is quite interesting, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, tell us about that.
So my mother was born in Egypt, Cairo. My father was born in Scotland. Mm-hmm. They got married young to mid-20s, I guess.
Yeah.
Had two amazing children, myself and my sister.
Yeah.
And then they went their separate ways. So essentially, my mother brought us up, myself and my sister on her own, really. Mm-hmm. So she kind of single parented. My father had very, very little influence on our lives as we were growing up.
Okay. Was there a lot of influences that your mum used from back home in Egypt, or was it purely a very British kind of upbringing?
We had a very British upbringing, yeah. My mum, she's easily influenced by outside sources, so she brought us up in what she believed was the best way possible.
Of course.
So she kind of followed the culture of the country that we were in. We were born, myself and my sister were born and bred in the UK. So she followed the trials and tribulations of how UK families live and survive. Standard education, leave school, get a job, buy a house, that kind of thing.
It's a mantra, isn't it?
Yeah, the mantra of how
settle
English
down,
people live. Settle down, get married, have a
kids.
couple of children. I was always the black sheep of the family, though. I did everything.
Really?
Yeah, I always did everything the wrong way. Myself and my sister were like two complete polar opposites. She went to school, did her A-levels, went to university, met a boy, got married, bought a house, had two children, and now lives happily ever after. Me, on the other hand, I dropped out of school at 15, didn't have any GCSEs, didn't really know what I was going to do. Kind of went from job to job here and there, started up my own business, met a few women, as you do, never got married, had a child out of wedlock, bought a house. So I was definitely the rogue black sheep of the family, to be honest.
So tell me something, if environment is everything, we talk about that all the time, don't we? Right, that you are the product of your environment. So you and your sister are the product of the same environment.
Yeah.
And yet, by your own admission, went totally in opposite directions.
But we were and we weren't the product of the same environment.
Okay.
So my sister was always given everything that she wanted.
Okay.
So she always went on the school trips. When she went to university, that was paid for by my parents. They can only afford to send one child to university, so the first one went.
Okay.
When they went on holidays, she was the one that went on the holidays with them. So I always missed out on things, and everything was always handed down to me. So I was the guy wearing the girls' trainers, the girls' jeans when I was younger. So for me, my struggles were always that when I was old enough, I wanted to be able to earn enough money not to be in that situation where I couldn't do the things that I wanted to do. So we did have two. Although we were in the exact same environment, we had two very different upbringings as well.
It's really interesting because, a lot of our viewers will identify, whereas, most of the Indian community would lean towards favouring the boy, even if he was younger. And so lots of girls out there will be resonating with your story right now.
It was definitely the opposite way around in our family. My sister was always favoured. It's very much the other way around now, though. Because I went through many, many struggles to get to where I am today, I'm now almost favoured for going through those struggles and coming out the other side and having something successful. And now my sister often says to me, "Oh, it's not fair. You have all the things that you want in life. That's not fair." I didn't have any different upbringing. The only difference is that I had the drive to do what I wanted to do to get there, because I wasn't happy with what I had.
Where do you think that came from? Was there resentment for your sister that she had all these things, and did she have the love and affection as well?
Yeah, maybe. She definitely, I mean, it's certainly when I was younger, it felt like she had more love and affection.
Sure.
You know, even down to things like my parents would sit down with her and help her with the school homework, and I was left to my own devices.
Yeah. Peter, look, you know, we're dear friends, right? What do you think causes that? Because I experienced that quite a lot in Asian cultures, where there is a favourite child, and you said I was the black sheep. As a parent, I mean, I'm a parent of twins, as you know, and the worst thing that I can ever imagine is favouring one over the other. And this was happening quite openly in terms of, like you said, we can only afford to send one of you to university, so it's going to be a sister. Why do parents do that? Because if I couldn't afford to send both of my kids to university, none of them would be going.
I think certainly in our family, when we were younger, you know, my sister was she was a good child. She would be the prime example of a good child, I would say. And I wasn't.
Right.
I just wasn't. I was a handful. I was not a nice child. You know, I was always in arguments with my
parents. So tell me something. Was she good because she was treated well? And were you bad because or was it, which came first? The bad behaviour?
I could blame it on that. I would probably say my bad behaviour came first.
Okay.
You know, I was always in trouble with the police. I was always sneaking out of the house. You know, so I would say my bad behaviour came first.
Okay.
And then my parents' lack of knowing what to do with me came afterwards, because I was a handful. I can't lie about that, you know.
Do you think it was just that the fact that they didn't understand you, or you genuinely misbehaved?
No child genuinely misbehaves to do it on purpose. Children just don't do that. They don't understand what they're doing is wrong. And, you know, I've had some very, very good friends on the way up the food chain that have taught me the difference between right and wrong, how to conduct myself, how to behave even. You know, and for me, I don't think I had enough discipline from my parents to really kick me into touch and to really educate me in the ways of how the world were. You know, I was 9 when my father left home. You know, so for me, I lost what was a big chunk of my upbringing. But then, you know.
Do you think as a boy, as a male, that it's more important to have a father figure in your life? Do you think your sister benefited from the fact that it was your father that left and your mum was still there? Were they close because of that?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. Certainly as a boy, you look for a role model, and I find myself doing it now in today's day and age. Even as a grown adult now, I still find myself looking for role models. You know, we disguise them as mentors in society today, but what you're looking for is a role model. You're looking for somebody who you can look up to, who you aspire to be like, and I think when you don't have that at a young age, that's where your problems can start. You know, you have nobody to look up to, and your lessons come from your parents.
Of course. Well, that's the model of life that you see, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
So you leave school at 16, little or no qualification?
I was 15 actually.
15?
Yeah,
wow.
15, yeah. I dropped out, didn't do my GCSEs.
Right.
Well, I kind of sat in the room and I was present. Didn't really do them.
And there's a time in education where teachers didn't particularly care, did they? If you didn't want to do anything, go.
My teachers always told me that I would end up as a bum. They always said that I would amount to nothing. You will go nowhere in life.
Yes.
You know, you can't barely spell. You're not very good at reading. You have very little attention for work. I was always told that I would go nowhere in life.
What did that do for you?
For me, it actually drove me to prove them wrong.
So you used that.
Yeah.
So it could have crushed you, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could have crushed me.
Yeah.
But I've never really listened to that kind of stuff. For me, I had a drive, and you know, I want to say that my drive is to earn money, but that's not strictly true. I have a passion for what I do, which is largely helping others in the work that I do. And for me, it's that drive is what takes me there.
Fantastic. So tell us about the early years of being a young man in Northampton. You grew up?
Early years of being a young man in Northampton. Well, you know, I started off, you know, I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school.
Of course.
But I liked cars. So I did what most young boys would do. I got an apprenticeship at a garage. I worked there right through to the point actually when they shut down. I used to work for Henley's Rover, part of the HMG group, and they went into liquidation when I would have been, I think, 19 or 20 now, so quite a while back now. And I was with them right to the end. But something that happened to me, which was a real game changer for me, was I broke my arm.
Okay.
Would have been, I think, about 18 now. I broke my arm, so I couldn't work on the shop floor fixing cars, which is what I was there for. That was my apprenticeship.
Okay.
And they gave me an opportunity. They were short-staffed and gave me an opportunity to work on their reception desk.
Right.
It was all I could do. I couldn't lift
Of
gearboxes,
course.
couldn't fix cars, couldn't do anything, but I could answer the telephone. I was nervous as anything.
Sure.
But that, for me, that was probably a turning point in my life, because I then realised that actually I didn't enjoy working on cars as much as I did helping people out.
Mm-hmm.
It was for, I was probably the lowest of the low at that point in that job. But I went from working on their reception desk to being their warranty manager to being their workshop controller to eventually then being one of the service managers.
So you kind of found your niche by accident.
I found my niche by accident there. And then when they closed down, I, as a bet, and I remember it, there was a lady that worked in their body shop, and she bet me £5 that I couldn't get a job as a bar manager for a company called Luminar Leisure.
Okay.
And I applied for the job, won the bet, got my £5. And again, that was, for me, that was a real big turning point in my career, because I went from somebody that was working behind a reception, or even somebody that was an apprentice mechanic working behind a reception, right through to being a service manager. And then when I started off working for Luminar Leisure, I started off as a assistant bar manager, but worked my way up there as a general manager, then moved up to become an area manager. And again, it was a real big turning point for me in my career.
Okay, so great formative years, learning in organisations, multiple roles in those organisations.
Yeah, definitely.
So when did you think, and when did you actually start your first business, and what was it?
So my first business started, actually, I got a job as an estate agent. And again, this was a real big turning point for me, because I was working for this estate agents for about 5 years now, 4 or 5 years. And I got sick of being treated like an employee. And it sounds bad to put it like that, but I didn't enjoy going to work. Very controlling over the hours that you could work, and that's not to suggest that I didn't want to work 9 to 5. I'm talking you needed to be there early, you needed to finish late. If you missed a beat, you were in trouble. If you didn't hit your sales targets, you were in trouble. If you were 2 minutes late for work, you were in trouble.
Was that the first employer that did that to you? Because obviously you'd had jobs before.
That was probably the first employer that you would really work over and above. And I've always been the kind of guy in any role that I've worked where, for me, 9 to 5 just isn't a job that I've had. I've never worked a 9 to 5. So I've always done that little bit more. But when you're always doing that little bit more, and it's then expected of you, and then you're pushed and pushed and pushed to the point where you don't feel valued, it's expected, I just thought, this just doesn't work for me anymore. And it was at that point where I'd made that turning point to then decide that now is the time to open my own company.
Fantastic. So what was that? What did you do?
So that was an estate agent.
Okay.
I went into competition against my employers.
Good.
And we went from nothing to one of the largest estate agencies in Northampton. We managed on our lettings portfolio just over 1,800 houses. So we were a fair size.
Yeah.
And we weren't as strong on the sales side, but certainly on the rental side, we were really strong as an agency.
Okay.
And I quite found my niche with that. And then, I also, along that way, I decided that it was a good time to maybe invest in a few other companies. I had a friend who was struggling with some hair salons and a beauty salon, so we negotiated a deal and I took those off his hands.
Okay.
And again, that was a real big turning point for me in the business world, were that I've now got this estate agents and these hair salons and beauty salons, but they're losing money. So I had to come up with a solution as to why.
When did they start losing money? Because obviously when you invested, they couldn't have been losing money. So
they were losing money when I bought them. And I bought them, all truth be told, I paid £1 for them.
Okay.
So it was a hypothetical £1. We did a paper agreement for them. But I took them off his hands because they were losing money and they didn't know what to do with them. So my first thing was to establish why they were losing money and what I could do to turn that around. And to me, they were losing money because people couldn't get in, or people couldn't book appointments because they had to pick up the telephone, but all the staff were always busy. And salons that aren't making money can't afford to pay for non-earners, so they had no receptionists.
Of course.
The next problem was that people would just not turn up. I mean, we're winding the clocks back nearly 10 years now, 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
So software in that industry just was either really expensive or didn't really exist.
Yeah.
So I set out on finding software or making software that would fill that void and fix that problem.
Okay, so at this point you've got no experience of software?
None whatsoever.
Okay, so you've got these two businesses. The estate agency is making great money, it's one of the biggest in your area. And you've got this loss-making operation.
Yep.
Right? And where are you, personally at this time? Are you with anybody? Are you, what's life like?
Me personally, I'd had a few partners.
Okay.
I hadn't had anybody particularly serious. I'd had various girlfriends that had lasted 2-3 months at a time. For me, I was always focused on work.
So you're still a single man?
Still a single guy.
All intents, right?
Still a single guy.
And how many hours are you working?
Couldn't tell you, probably 100 plus a week. Yeah, lose count, yeah. Easy. I would start work at 6, 7 in the morning and finish 8, 9, 10 at night, whenever I finished.
Okay. So are you enjoying life at this point? Are you living the dream of an entrepreneur and a millionaire lifestyle at this point?
What is the dream? What is the dream that anyone's living? For me, I live to work.
Okay.
Some people work to live. But for me, I don't see my work as work.
Have you always been like that?
Yeah, always, yeah.
Were you like that from when you were employed?
I was,
in the car business.
I would say, yeah. When I was in the car business, I always loved learning new things.
Yeah.
Always wanted to do more. Always wanted to do better. If I wasn't in the garage at work fixing cars, I'd be at home fixing cars.
Yeah.
So for me, that was always the way I was. My friends would be out drinking on the weekends, out partying. I'd be working. I'd be getting deals done. I'd be doing what I needed to do.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to get to is that as an entrepreneur, see, my thoughts are whether you work for somebody else, you have an employer, or if you work for yourself, that entrepreneur mindset remains. And that serves you well, doesn't it, in your own business?
Hugely, yeah.
You can do the 9 to 5 at work, and do the bare minimum, and that's fine. But come redundancy time or promotion time, we know which one you're getting if you do the minimum,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. If you do the minimum, you're out the door first.
Right? So that's what happens. And then the other thing is that people say, well, my employer doesn't value me. Well, if they don't, then somebody else will.
Yeah.
Right? So, you get promoted one way or another, whether your employer promotes you or somebody else headhunts you, right?
Although I find that there's a lot of people that will just coast on by. And I come across it all the time.
Yeah,
people that aren't happy with their jobs, they just coast. They don't want to take that risk by, I'm going to work that little bit longer, because they have that attitude of, why should I work longer? No one's going to pay me. But what they don't see is that paycheck might not be immediate. It might be a month down the line. It might be 6 months down the line. But if you don't put the effort in today, you'll never see that. And that's the same with entrepreneurship. How many risks do we take every day as an entrepreneur? And you might not get a reward for that.
That's right.
I've invested hundreds of thousands of pounds into projects that I might not get a reward for. It's the same as gambling, and that's what business is. You're taking a risk, you're taking a gamble. The bigger the risk, the greater the possibility of the reward. And, when I take myself and my sister as great comparisons there, yeah? She has a job, she earns 40,000 a year, which sounds great. I have a job that earns 100 plus a year, but I take a bigger risk to get there.
Of course.
But I also went through harder times to get there. I've had days when I can't pay my mortgage. I've had times when I haven't been able to pay the staff. I've had times when I haven't been able to pay my car finance. I've had times when bills have been gone unpaid for months, because you take that risk, and you take that risk with the fact that there is a reward at the end of it.
Yeah.
But if you don't take the risk, you'll never get to the other side.
What have the rewards been, Pete? Because we have entrepreneurs, and we're very risk averse in this country. I don't think we're entrepreneurial enough. So, and then these are the kind of things, when I'm speaking to people about setting up their own business, these are the kind of things that they're saying can go wrong.
Yeah.
But what goes right? Let's talk about that for a minute.
What goes right? Okay, I've had countless amounts of cars. Ones that people could only dream of.
Yep.
My biggest challenge some mornings used to be which one of my 7 cars I was going to get into and drive. Range Rover, Ferrari, Bentley, Porsche, whichever one. Take it or leave it. That's a reward.
Yeah. So toys, right?
Toys is a great reward. Luxury holidays. I might work hard, but I also play hard as well.
Yes.
You need to reward yourself, because if you don't reward yourself, there's no point doing all that work.
What are you doing it for?
So I've enjoyed it. I've had luxurious houses, expensive watches, tailor-made suits, things that people can't afford in an ordinary life. So they are the rewards for it when things go right.
Yeah.
You have available cash that people don't have. You don't have, you get to a certain point where you don't have those money worries that people do, where they have to budget in life.
Yeah.
You're going to go out for dinner and everybody's got to figure out what they need to order on the menu, because the bill can't come to more than £58, because that's all you've got left. They're the rewards.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got those. We've got the house, we've got the 7 cars. Which one are we going to take?
Yeah.
Right? And you think, that you've arrived, don't you?
Yeah. I thought I'd made it. I thought I'd arrived.
I'm here now, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes God has other plans for us, and we as soon as we get comfortable, it seems like, because it's happened to me.
Yeah.
As soon as I thought this is it, and the slide had probably already started as soon as I thought that. How was that? Because the story now changes, doesn't it?
Well, for me, I was at a point where I had a software company that was thriving and doing very well.
Yeah.
I had my estate agents that were thriving, doing very, very well. And I also had my hair salons, which were doing
So you turned those around?
We turned those around.
Okay.
We were making good money out of those. But something I learnt in business, when you take your eye off the ball, that is where things go wrong. I thought I'd made it. I thought, I've got all this money, it's never going to run out. One of the things I didn't think about was things like compliance, things like the law. Because when you're earning loads of money, you think that the law doesn't exist. You can buy whatever you want.
Yeah, and you do think you've got professional advisors as well, don't you?
Yeah.
Right, but the problem with that is, regardless of what happens in accounting, for instance, it's not your accountant that's responsible; it's you.
It's you that's ultimately responsible.
And it's quite easy to forget that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, you're the company director.
Yeah.
So if something goes wrong, your manager is not in trouble,
That's
or your
right.
employees are not in trouble. Ultimately, you are the one that's in trouble.
That's right.
You are the one that has to answer the questions. The buck stops at you.
Okay.
And if something goes really wrong, you're the one that's paying the price for it.
So you took your eye off the ball. What happened?
So in my estate agency, there was a period of time where we were, one or other reason, we were losing money.
Okay.
And my lettings manager at the time, rather than telling me that we were losing money and telling me we needed to deal with that problem, it was just easier to move money around our company accounts. It was easier to not register client deposits and use that money, because it filled a hole. One of which that I didn't realise, well, I did realise at the time, but you don't realise that you're spending that money on your lifestyle. You're where you think everything's fine, you're just robbing Peter to pay Paul if you're not careful. Because
right. So you have 3 businesses, you have a fantastic lifestyle, but there's a leak in the bucket, and a severe leak with great consequences, right?
Yeah.
And so share with us what happened.
So this would have been back in 2015 now, so nearly 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
Actually, in fact, it was almost 6 years ago to the day, actually. myself and my lettings manager, who was also my partner at the time,
Okay.
I just thought never ever mix business and pleasure, but I did mix business and
Yeah, it
pleasure, and
happens.
it was a fatal mistake for me. We'd had a really big argument one afternoon, and she said to me, "That's it, I'm leaving you. And by the way, I've transferred £60,000 out of our client account. That's going to fund me to live my life for the next 12 months, and you can deal with that problem." I didn't really think anything of it at the time, but I just phoned the police and reported it as a crime. In my eyes, it was stolen money. It was a crime.
Okay.
And they said, "You know what? This is a civil matter. You need to speak to her. You need to ask her to return the money back. If she doesn't, we'll then look to take it further." Knowingly or unknowingly to me, she transferred that money with my username and password from our client account. So it technically looked like I just transferred it to her myself. So that was already a big problem for me anyway. Fast forward a few days, she transferred that money back, which was great. But by this point, the estate agents was part of a franchise.
Okay.
And I'd had to notify them what was going on. So they said, "It's time we do an audit on your accounts." And as part of their audit, they discovered that there was £250,000 missing out of our accounts as well.
Whoa.
Or their calculations added up to £250,000.
Okay.
Of which they said, "Okay, this is a problem. You've got deposits that aren't registered. You've got landlord's rents that haven't been paid. And now you've got a hole of nearly £250,000 in your bank account. You need to replace this money in 7 days.
Right.
Or we're going to do something about it."
Okay. So,
and for me, I didn't have £250,000
Yeah.
lying around in my bank account. I was, for want of better words, I thought I'd made it. I had lots and lots of nice cars, but you can't get rid of assets that quickly, especially when they're on finance.
right,
And they've got no value to them anyway. So this was a problem for me. So my portfolio was probably worth around about £1 million. So our franchise said, you know, we will broker a deal with an estate agents down the road. They'll take the portfolio, they'll plug the hole up,
yeah.
and you will walk away with no repercussions.
Okay.
So to me, that was a really good deal. You know, the estate agency was a business that I wanted to get out of anyway.
Okay.
I had the software business. By this point, I'd already sold the hair salons.
Okay.
And I wanted to really focus on the software business because to me, it was a new thing.
Yeah.
And I'd kind of been in that estate agency world for...
So you'd had enough of it.
Yeah,
it was
I'd had
losing
enough.
money, like
It was
you
losing
said.
money,
And then
wanted to
obviously
get
your
out.
partnership had broken down in terms of business and
Yeah.
home. So
Yeah.
it was something. Did you have any inkling? Because I obviously know how the story goes. Did you have any inkling at that time what was about to happen?
Listen, I went home that day. So when we did the deal with the estate agents down the road,
Okay.
I went home that day and opened a bottle of champagne and I celebrated with some friends.
Okay.
It was the best thing that had happened. I'd got rid of a major problem and I was able to start a new chapter and just
Right.
get on with my life.
Okay.
So yeah, we went home, we opened some champagne, we had a party, smoked some cigars. It was great.
Okay.
Yeah,
How long did
it
the
was...
party last?
Pardon?
How long did the party last
A
before?
couple of days.
Okay.
You mean before reality sunk in?
Yes.
Myself and my partner were, after the party, we had decided we were going to go our separate ways. So we were clearing our house out. And one of my neighbours actually phoned me and said, "Oh, there's been some police that have come to the house. They've left a card. Could you give them a call?" So I said, "Sure, yeah, no worries." So they gave me the number. A couple of days passed. I rang them and they said, "Oh, you know, we'd like to invite you to the police station for an interview."
The voluntary interview.
Voluntary interview this was. I said, "Okay, sure, no problem."
Yeah.
So I drove to the police station, as you do, in my Range Rover,
Yeah.
parked it outside the front, as you do. And as I walked through the front door of the station, they cuffed me and arrested me and put me in a cell. I thought, this is a bit extreme. I've come for a voluntary interview. I thought I was going to get tea and biscuits. But no, they had other plans for me. So they don't tell you when you go for a voluntary interview. They don't tell you when you're in the cell what that interview is about.
Right.
Obviously, I had an inkling of what it was about,
Yeah.
but they didn't necessarily tell me what it was about. It was only when I went in for the actual interview that they'd said to me that I think around about 120 people had complained to Northamptonshire Police that their money had been stolen and that I'd fled the country. That was what was said to the police.
Okay, so this sale that had taken place.
Yeah, it turned out that it wasn't much of a sale.
Okay.
So the people that had taken over the portfolio were my ex-employers.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, and 10 years prior, when I left their company, I didn't leave on the greatest of terms.
Okay.
I was their top sales negotiator, and my tiny brain had forgotten that I quite arrogantly had been paid quite a large sum of money from them, and I just walked out and left the morning of payday and said, "Thanks very much. I'll see you never." Setting up on my own and taking my clients with me.
Okay.
But I'd forgotten about all of this. Well, you never really forget, but I'd buried it so far to the back of my mind it wasn't apparent.
Yeah, it's 10 years ago.
It's 10 years ago. You don't think anybody's going to hold a grudge for that time.
Yeah.
So the agency that took over my portfolio wrote to every single one of our landlords and tenants and said that I had taken their money away. They would do their best to compensate them, but if they wanted to
invited them to make a complaint.
If they wanted to make a complaint to the Northamptonshire Police,
it
would be best that they did that.
Wow.
See, I think it was 122 or something people like that complained to Northamptonshire Police.
So you get charged?
I didn't actually get charged, no.
Okay.
I was released on bail. I think they call it bail now in the UK. But I had my voluntary interview and I went home that same day.
Okay.
After having my laptop, my iPad, my phone, my watch, everything seized from me in my car, and kind of having to travel home and think, how am I going to get on with life now? And this put a real big kind of hold on my life, probably 2 years. This would have been July 2015, and I employed a really good top solicitor who looked into it for me. Cost me a lot of money, and their view was that if we can get a forensic accountant to look at the figures, if it's under 100,000 that they claim is stolen, you'll walk away with a suspended sentence. If you make an offer to pay that money back, you'll definitely get a suspended sentence, and nothing more will happen really.
Right.
So I set about my sights on building my software company so that I can have enough money to make sure I can pay this bill back that potentially might come. So we were building this software business. So
whilst this is going on, you've got the lawyers involved.
Yeah, I've got lawyers involved. They're doing their work.
And you're thinking, you know what?
I'm thinking,
let me build this new business.
Yep.
And if I can pay that money back, all well and good.
Yep.
Right? Okay, maybe a delay, but these people will get paid. So you have good intentions, right?
Real good intentions.
Yeah.
I've never been that kind of person that wants to purposely go out and defraud anyone.
Of course.
That's not who I am.
Yeah.
And I remember for me, when that estate agency, when that all went down, the biggest thing that hurt the most wasn't losing money. To me, I didn't really care about losing money, not my own personally. It was letting other people down. I always believed that I was a trusting person. I always believed that I was that person that would never steal from anybody, never intentionally go out and cause harm to anybody. So when I let those people down, that got to me the most. That really broke me, and that broke my spirit a lot, to be honest. It took a lot to get over that. So in my eyes, my intention was always there. If I can find a way of dealing with this problem and paying this money back,
making good, right?
I'll do it.
Okay.
And then I can hold my head up high and say, I've done the right thing. Yeah. Until May 2017.
Yeah.
21st of May 2017. When we went to court for the final hearing. I had 3 or 4 court hearings and it kept getting adjourned, and they couldn't work out the amounts of money, the solicitors couldn't agree on things, the CPS couldn't agree on things. They wanted to charge me for £500,000, which would have seen me 7 or 8 years in jail. My solicitors were really fighting, and even despite what happened, they really did a good job. I could never ever knock that. But I'll never forget, May the 21st, 2017, and we were in the dock, and I remember the judge just said, you know, due to the nature of your crime, the length of the time that it's gone over, you know, irrespective of the fact that you want to pay that money back, and we were armed with a banker's draft for 100,000 to pay that back, they said, people like you need to learn a lesson that you cannot buy what you want.
Yeah.
You need to learn that what you did was a crime. And they sentenced me to 26 months in a custodial prison.
Wow.
And I thought it was a joke at the time. I thought to myself, this is a joke. Someone's on a wind-up. I'm going to go down into wherever they take me, and someone's just going to, you know, tell me it's all over. It's just, it's just a joke. It's all over. I didn't really take it seriously, but I remember, and I'll never forget, I was looking out into the courtroom, and not many people have been to a Crown Court, and it's a lot different to a magistrate's court for some sort of CCJ. When you go to the Crown Court, you're looking into a big courthouse. There's a jury there. There's everything there, and you walk in one door on the right, and you think you're going to go back out the same door, but that door doesn't open when you're sentenced. The door on the left opens, and there's a guy there with some cuffs, ready to cuff you and take you down into the cell. But the reality doesn't kick in at that point yet.
Right.
You know, you've still got your identity, you've still got your clothes, you've still got your shoes, you've still got your sort of possessions, and you've still got some hope that you may actually go home that day. But you're there. And then when they take you from that cell underneath the courthouse, which you spend most of your day there, and if you're unfortunate enough to go to court early in the morning, you're there till the end of the day.
Okay.
Like from 10 o'clock in the morning through till 7 o'clock at night, when you're transported out of that court, and then you're transported to a prison, and you still believe it's a joke at this time.
So you're in denial, aren't you? Your brain's thinking, this cannot be.
Completely in
this
denial.
Can't be happening to me.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
It's happening to somebody else. It's just a horrible joke. And then you walk through the door of that prison, and you kind of presented with a reception desk, and you're now a number. You're no longer a name, you're a number. DZ118 or something like that. I can't remember now. But you're now, you don't have a name, you're a number. Your clothes are taken off you, so you've now lost that last piece of your identity you have, because you don't realise, you don't realise till you haven't got the opportunity to wear them. Your clothes make up a big part of who you are.
Part of your identity, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. Your clothes are your identity.
Can I ask, did you have a tailor-made suit on?
I did have a tailor-made suit on, yes.
Okay. How did that feel, taking that off?
It just doesn't... You don't really feel like it's happening, to be honest. You don't really know what to think. I mean, I remember when I left, I was living in a penthouse apartment in, Beaufort Park in central London. If you'd have looked at my apartment the day that I went to court, you would have thought that I was coming home that day. There were dishes in the sink, clothes in the washing machine. I didn't...
So you were definitely not prepared?
Definitely wasn't prepared.
Yeah.
My solicitor actually told me, she said, you want to pack a suitcase, take £500 cash with you, because you'll need that. And I took nothing. I had £20 in my pocket. I didn't even write any of the telephone numbers down for people that I needed to know.
Was that a mistake?
Yes and no.
Living in denial? Because your solicitors clearly advised you correctly.
I think
this is likely to happen.
I think if I'd have lived thinking that it was going to happen, that I was going to go away, I wouldn't have lived my life. I wouldn't have built that second business, or third business even. I wouldn't have built it, because I would have been constantly thinking, I'm going to go to jail, I'm going to lose everything anyway.
Yeah.
There was always a little niggling in the back of my mind, an inkling that I was going to go to jail. Yeah. And it could happen, but I just lived for the moment, and I lived in that world saying it's not going to happen. So I lived and built a business.
So how long did you serve?
I served 8.5 months of that 26-month sentence.
Right.
And again, something they don't tell you, or you don't know when you first go to jail, is that, I was going to serve half of that sentence in a custodial prison. The other half you serve out on probation. Yeah. But on top of that, if you've got somewhere reasonable that you can live, You can serve another 6 months of that sentence on what they call home detention curfew, which is a tag.
Right.
So you're allowed out of the house from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the evening.
So physically, out of that 26 months, was it?
Yeah, out of that 26 months.
How much did you spend in prison?
8.5 months in a custodial prison.
So you came out when? Was it about 3 years ago now?
Yeah, just over 3 years ago now, February the 8th, 2018.
Okay. And so you come out, everything's gone.
Yeah, those first few weeks while I was in jail, they were probably the worst few weeks of my life ever. Week number 1, my business partner at the time wrote to me and said, you've broken the clauses of our contracts that we had together, so we're going to take your shares of the company away from you. So me thinking that I was going to go to jail being pretty wealthy and come out being even more wealthy, those plans were completely shattered.
Yeah.
So I just kind of discovered that day that I'd lost that business. And then, something I hadn't really banked on as part of my jail sentence was the Proceeds of Crime Act.
Okay.
So, my bank accounts were frozen. So my house, I couldn't pay my mortgage for a year. My cars were taken off me. Any cash that I had in the bank was taken away from me. My pensions were taken away from me. My savings were taken away from me, and my possessions were seized, what were in my apartment at the time. So you literally go back to rock bottom with nothing.
Okay. So that was early part of 2017?
Yeah, that was the early part of 2017.
Okay. So you come out?
Come out with £361.
Wow.
I earned that while I was in jail. I was proud of that. Yeah, I was proud of that.
So life really has to begin again.
Yeah.
Except now you got a criminal record.
Yeah, now you got a criminal record, so it's even harder to get a job.
Yeah.
How do you, because there's huge numbers, aren't there, that reoffend? Can you understand why they do that? That's I do actually. Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah?
When I spent my time in jail,
Yeah.
I did a lot of different schemes. So I did a housing and welfare rehabilitation scheme.
Yeah.
As in, I worked there helping people get their own housing.
Yeah.
I worked for what was called the Shannon Trust, teaching people how to read and write in jail, even though I couldn't read and write that well myself. But in the jail population, only 5% of people in UK jails can read or write.
Yeah.
And I used to talk to so many prisoners, and I'd ask them why they were there. And it was always for petty crime, or they would sell drugs, or they would steal, things like that. There were no great masterminds in jail. Well, there probably are a few around, but there were no, in the jail that I was in, there were no masterminds, so they'd reoffend because that was all they could do.
We could talk about that forever and a day, about the reform system and whether there is rehabilitation or not.
Yeah.
But, time waits for no man, so, we want to move along because there is an ending to this story, which we I'm obviously aware of.
Yeah.
So you came out of prison and you think, right, I want to start business again, right?
Yep. You just do it. Yeah, you just, you have to put all of those faults to one side.
Yeah.
And there are always a few trigger moments of things that happened as I came out. And strangely enough, an old customer from my estate agency days phoned me. And I remember he said, we need a website building and somebody's built it for us and we don't really quite know what to do. Is there something you can do to help out? And I thought, you know what? I know how to build websites. I've done a little bit of this from my software days when we were building software before. Yeah. So I built them a website and, they paid me for it. And I thought, wow.
Whole new idea, whole new business.
I've earned some money here. I've been paid to build this website. Yeah. It was a couple of £100, but you know what? When you got nothing, a couple of £100 is a lot of money. Yeah. And then from back in my old days when I'd had these salons and I used to have a lot of connections in that world, people just started asking me if I could help them build websites. And before I knew it, I'd had another person that came along asking for a website to be built, and then somebody else asked for one to be built. And then what eventually happened is, I then thought, hold on a second, I'm onto something here. Maybe this could be a business. But that didn't come without its own challenges as well. So what I really wanted to do was I really wanted to get back into that scheduling software world. I thought, you know, I'm going to take on my ex-business partner, we'll build some scheduling software, and, you know, I'll take him on. You know, little did it occur to me that, you know, my old software company was 10, 12 years old. It had a lot of development. You know, I'm trying to rebuild 10, 12 years work in 6 months. You know, so I've employed developers, I've managed to borrow some money from my mum, I'm really scrabbling around trying to pull all this stuff together, and we're trying, it never really quite gets off the ground. And then, you know, one day, you know, I'd started working with a personal trainer as well, because I decided that I wanted to take care of my fitness, what I looked like, things like that. You know, so for me, you know, I'd started to take care of other aspects of my life as well. Stopped drinking, started to look after my diet, started to go to the gym, and then this trainer that I was with asked me if I wanted to come to this what was it called, Power to Achieve event. And you know, if anybody else had have asked me to go to that, I would have said no. Go to some happy clappy event, and I'd have said no. But you know, again, he asked me if I would go to that, so I did. And that was where things really took a turning for me. You know, I met your good self there.
Yes, indeed.
You know, and then business went from strength to strength. We built a full, proper company out of it. And here we are today, 3 years on, with a real business that's really doing well and really striving to make differences in the country.
Fantastic. Amazing story, Peter. It's not the end. It's just the beginning.
No, it's just the beginning, really.
I'd really hope that our viewers appreciate. We're not here to judge. You know, you've faced your trial, you've done the time. You know, as I said to you when we first met, that it's done. The past is the past.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. What's the future? So future's looking good. You're an entrepreneur again.
Hugely looking good. Yeah.
Right.
Very busy.
Yeah, extremely. So, you know, and again, resilience.
Yeah.
Right. You know, never knowing when to quit.
Somebody asked me, you know, not that long ago, how do you lose everything and just get up and do it? And you know what? The only answer I could give them was, you just have to do it. Everybody fails in life.
Yeah.
Everybody fails in life at some stage. There's always going to be adversity somewhere. There's always going to be something that goes wrong. But failure is not really a problem. Yeah, it's when you quit that's the issue. You know,
crystallizes failure, doesn't it? When
of
you
course
quit,
it does. When you quit and you say, that's it, I've had enough, and you put that gauntlet down, that's when you've really failed.
And you
Getting
lose
something wrong, losing a business deal, losing some money, losing something, it's going to happen to everybody.
It's part and parcel, isn't it?
It's part and parcel of business.
Yeah.
You know, but you haven't really failed. The only time you really fail is when you quit.
Thank you so much
the only way of doing
for sharing your story. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'll see you in the office in the morning.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching today. And, you know, another episode comes to an end. So just wanted to let everybody know that the Kam Johal Show is taking a break. So we'll be back with you in August, planning some new guests and a slight change. So I should be taking a break from you. It's been really, really enjoyable presenting the show, and I will be back. But it's time for us to rethink and have a break in the summer. I hope you enjoy the time that you're away from me. So I shall be preparing for the next season of shows that we have. So I immensely enjoy the support that I get from you, the phone calls, the emails, the social media messages. Keep those coming, because we're still here. So I will see you back in August. Have an amazing summer holidays, and I will see you soon. Take care.